All right, well, good Thursday afternoon, everybody, and good to be able to join you live again here this week. As we wait for some folks to come in, we just give you a couple updates. We've had kind of a busy week already. We had to drive down to Portland from Bend, about a 3-hour drive for us, for a series of follow-up appointments with our youngest daughter, our new type 1 diabetic in the house. So got down there Tuesday, about dinner time, I guess, and kind of settled in. And then we had to get up real early Wednesday. I'm supposed to be at Dornbecker's, really the Harold Schnitzer Diabetes Center near OHSU in the West Hills of Portland. We were supposed to be there at 7:50. We didn't make it, but thankfully we made it through all of our appointments, and then the drive back home again, and immediately into a series of 3 meetings, the last being our midweek Bible study hours. So we're making progress there. Zoe now has a continuous glucose monitor, commonly known among the diabetics as a CGM. Her brand is Dexcom, which is a big relief for her and for us. It means she doesn't have to poke her finger all the time and draw blood to get an idea of where her blood sugars are at. So we're thankful for these technological tools that help us manage diabetes better. So anyhow, we're looking forward to jumping in here today with just some very practical things, simple things. We've built this background about 2 equaling 1 and this whole concept of marriage math God's way, and understanding God's design in marriage, God's intent in marriage, and how marriage can really only work the way of the Lord. And, marriage, I should say this, traditional marriage is under immense and severe attack in our country today by a very minority, loud, militant, minority fringe of people that want to normalize their deviant lifestyle, and so perverse lifestyle, and what's really rooted in age-old queer theory. If you don't know a whole lot about the current LGBTQ plus community's push, I would really suggest that you do your own research, get online, get on the internet, and just Google queer theory, and spend some time reading the writings of these queer theorists from the mostly late 70s and early 80s of the 1900s. And you'll quickly, if you read carefully, you'll begin to see that even back then in the 70s and 80s, the whole queer theory was about ultimately pedophilia. And so there's different people online. Matt Walsh is a big voice about this, and he's been trying to help people to realize and understand that the whole LGBTQ movement is just a gateway to normalizing sexual relationships between minor children and adults. And I saw recently that the UN, I believe it was the UN, came out and declared, this isn't a law, but declared that their position is that children as young as 10 years old can make sexual decisions and be fully sexually active with adults, regardless as to age. So this is the push. It's wickedness. And so these attacks against traditional marriage are designed of the devil to go in that direction. So it's important, therefore, that people who are pro-traditional marriage, that is meaning biblical marriage, God's way, really focus on building their marriages God's way and being a lighthouse to those around them. So before we delve into this conversation about the importance and practicality of lifelong dating, and maybe I should have changed that in the description to, I like lifelong because to say marriage long, but that might leave the idea that if you decide to bail out, you can bail out. But lifelong dating. And so again, as you come online here to watch, if you can give us a comment, a good afternoon, something, then we know who you are. I do see we have somebody watching live right now. So just a hello or something in the comments will let us know who you are. If you have comments about anything we say, feel free to drop them in. We do monitor those comments as we go through. And if you have questions, drop those in there, and we'll do our best from at least our perspective and opinion to address those also. So let's talk a little bit about dating inside of marriage. It's kind of an odd concept for a lot of people. I think, hey, Andrew, I think many people get the understanding of dating before marriage. And those romantic relationships that people have before they're married are oftentimes called dating. We're in a dating relationship, a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, and we're dating each other. That's not really what I'm talking about, is this concept of pre-marriage romance. What I'm talking about is the continuation of dating your wife so that you have continual marital romance. As a pastor, 20 years a pastor, and dealing with couples in church and counseling some of them through marital strife and stress and so on, it's not uncommon that I find over and over and over and over again that married couples simply do not go on dates. That they also held this view that dating is what you did before you got married. Mm-hmm. And they get busy with jobs and careers. They get busy building a home, and I literally mean the structure in which they live. They get busy with extended family activities. They get busy with life. They get busy then with children. And inevitably, they just grow apart. And you got to realize that for people who end up married, they only got to that point and that desire to be united together in holy matrimony because they spent a lot of time together. That is, they dated. So think about it. Isn't it just kind of common sense that if it took us spending a lot of time together to want to marry each other, that maybe we need to spend a lot of time together so that we want to stay married to each other? And so it's just amazing how many people stop dating after they get married. And we kind of fell into that trap ourselves. We didn't know. There was nobody teaching us or exhorting us or helping us to be mindful of the need to keep the romance alive. You know, we got married in July of 1990, and we were parents by the end of June 1991, and it just went, there was no honeymoon, really, as married people. We just went from being newlyweds to parents, and obviously if we're having our child in June, that we were expecting a child just a handful of months into our marriage. And so we went from just being a young married couple to parents almost immediately. And as the pregnancy progressed, everything began to be more and more about getting ready for the child and preparing a room and a crib and on that goes. And then, our oldest came, and then there she was, and just the busyness of being parents and building a family and taking care of a child. And pretty soon, everything that we had developed between us, I'm not going to say we grew apart from one another, but there was certainly added stress because we weren't spending time together like we had before. We were busy. I was in the military. Cynthia was busy at home with the child. And when I got home, there was a child to take care of. And of course, we're young, and our income level's not very high, so there weren't trips. There weren't a lot of dinners out. When you did go to dinner, you're hauling a baby along. And so the natural thing there for quite a bit of time was that you just kind of do life together. And I will grant you that is indeed part of marriage, is doing life together. But there's more to it than just doing life together. It's a marriage relationship that you're trying to build. And so we discovered, I don't know how far into our marriage, we discovered somewhere there that, we need to date. We need to go back to dating. Our marriage needs that spark back. And the way to get that back is to do the things that we did that put the spark there in the first place, to keep the spark alive. So we're talking about the need of a lifetime of dating your lover. And so I think that's just so important. And of course, like I've already said, for many young couples, For many young couples, the ability to do that can be difficult for all the reasons I just described. Income levels are low when you're just starting out in your career. Expenses are high. You've got a baby, and you've got diapers, and you've got formula or food or whatever, and everything is just so expensive that the idea of trying to find a place where you can pay a babysitter, find somebody you trust to watch your little baby, pay them, and then go wherever you're going to go, and the expense of the meal, and on, dating just kind of becomes seemingly an impossibility. But I want to say this, that it's important to continue to date through all of marriage, regardless as to what stage of your marriage is in, whether that's newlywed, whether that's just starting out with kids and establishing a career, or that's going into the place where the kiddos are getting busier in life and more independent as they enter the teenage years, and that maybe that gives you more space, or you got some that are out of the house and some that are in the house. How about this one? This is new for us. Grandkids.
Yeah.
And young newlywed daughter and son-in-law who sometimes wants us to watch their kids so they can have a date. Mm-hmm. And then we add to that, our youngest with diabetes and busyness there. And ministry life, for 20 years we've been pastoring, but really church planners for the last 20 years. So very busy. And so how do you even get in the spot where you think about that? Well, I don't know how to tell you necessarily how to get in the spot where you think about that, except to just determine we're never going to stop dating. We're just going to date each other lifelong. It's going to be a priority. If your priority is parenting, you're missing the whole point of marriage, because parenting isn't the whole point of marriage. The whole point of marriage is a man and wife becoming one flesh. The byproduct of that, or the fruit of that, is children, but they're not to become the focus when they come. We frequently tell our kids, you're number two. We're number one, you're number two in this equation, and we're more important than you as far as the relationship goes. Because if we're okay, you'll be okay. But if we neglect us for you, and we're not okay, then nobody's going to be okay. And so some of us just talking through that as a family. But the importance of that is, I guess for me, it seems logical now, at 55 years of age and almost 33 years of marriage. It just seems rational logic that, we've got to make our marriage a priority. And not just marriage as a institution of raising kids and buying houses and cars and all of that, but marriage is the love that flows between us, the romance that needs to be there. So it's highly important. My recommendation is, if you don't have a continual, consistent dating practice in your marriage, get it. And I don't just mean once a month. Here's what we try to do, and we're not always able to do this because life happens. But we try to have a date every week. And every single week we go out. We try to get out. Sometimes it's a lunch, sometimes it's a dinner, sometimes it's neither. It's just getting out, just the two of us, and spending some time together. We try to also 2, 3, 4 times a year plan where we can get away for 2 or 3 nights together with no kids. When we go on a date, there's no kids. When we get out of town like that, it's just a little micro date, the two of us, for maybe 2 or 3 nights all alone, and we can just spend some time together, do some things together. And so it's just important to build that in. And I would recommend every young couple continue at least a weekly date and schedule into your calendar several weekend getaways or a Monday, Tuesday getaway or whatever in the year. Put them on your calendar. And I've discovered if you don't calendar it, it doesn't happen. We even calendar our dates. We don't just decide, hey, let's go on a dinner date tonight. Mm-hmm. It's on our calendar. Right. It's a weekly event. It's the same day, same time for the most part, every single week. Some people say, well, there's no spontaneity to that. Well, sometimes when you're dealing with the nuts and bolts of marriage, you need to be mature enough to throw the concept of spontaneity a little bit out the window. because life does get busy. And so if you're going to prioritize your marriage, you schedule the dates. You don't just decide on the fly, hey, let's go. Put it in your weekly calendar, and there's no music lessons that day. There's no baseball that day. There's nothing to interfere with it, because that is a priority for your marriage, that you're going to do that. And we also schedule those getaways. We sit down, usually around October or November of every year, and we plan getaways. We don't necessarily pick places. We just look at our calendar, and we plan days that we're going to be out of town together. Later, we'll discover and figure out the place that that's going to be. Extremely important we do that. And it's equally important that if we're going to schedule it, hey, hello, we be able to finance it. Right. Got to be able to pay for that. And so we actually put into our monthly budget. Do you have one of those, a monthly budget? On paper? Maybe you don't need it on paper. We do it on paper. But we actually put in our monthly budget a set dollar amount for our date nights. And it's not a lot of money. We've still got 3 kids at home and expenses associated with that, and on and on like everybody else does. But it's not extravagant. We don't go on $100 dinners. Sometimes we just go to our local Chinese place and we share a $20 entree. $20 a week, big deal. And we spend some time together. And so it's important to prioritize the romance of your marriage, not just in scheduling it, but budgeting it also. Budget in. We're going to save $100 every month or $50 every month for our ability to go on these little weekend 2-day getaways. But the point is, again, guys, if you don't prioritize this and make it a part of your life, it's just not going to happen. And that's not going to be good for your marriage. It may seem like it's okay, and you might be okay for a few years doing that, but you're going to see inside your relationship that you will develop an increased level of frustration, discontent, anger, bitterness, because you're not purposing to keep alive what got started. And I've had people come to me and say, well, I just don't love her anymore, or I don't love him anymore. And I typically ask questions, well, how did you fall in love with each other in the first place? Tell me about what you were doing that caused you to fall in love. And then normally this conversation will open up about spending time together, and walks together, and talks together, and flowers that were brought, and notes that were written, all these things that cause these two people to fall in love. And then I ask questions very simply, well, do you still do those things? When did you quit doing those things? Why did you quit doing those things? Point is, if you start doing the things that cause you to fall in love, you keep doing that, you'll stay in love. But sometimes we get this idea we got the prize, and so all that can quit, and we just neglect. And so the exhortation here is, don't neglect it. Don't neglect the romance in your marriage relationship. Keep it alive at every cost. Make time for yourselves as a couple. Budget money so you can have time for yourselves. I'm going to ask Cynthia to talk a little bit about that, because again, especially for our younger audience, we know how difficult that can be. And so what are some ideas that younger couples can do to make this feasible, affordable, especially with like child care?
I would do like we have done in the past. We have friends that we can talk and share and trust at the same time, watching our children. It does not have that much cost for child care, because you take turn as a young couple. That's what we have done in the past.
Find a young couple in your church.
Yeah.
And just exchange dates.
Right.
Say we're going to go on a date on Friday, and
right.
we're going to go on a date on Thursday, and watch each other's kids free of charge.
Right. Especially, your children like your children too. So it's important that you have those friends inside the church that you can hey, I wanted to go out dinner with my husband or my wife, could you do this time and we'll do swap it. It's
Yeah.
easy to, yeah.
Take turns and there's no payments.
Yeah, or you can ask, your, family members that they are, willing, grandparents or your parents. It'll be, people that that you can trust, with your children. Nowadays, you don't even know who to trust because of what is, happening, and it's like out there is wicked. And so always, think about ways that you can date your spouse and long term. It's like like my husband was saying, he said that, at least once a week, get, a couple hours to have a date night once a week. Now, sometimes it gets really expensive that way. And so what happened, it'll be like, okay, I cannot afford once a week. Well, then once a week, maybe dinner night, or maybe go to the park. Take your, lunch or dinner to the park. It doesn't cost anything. You just bring it, with you. And it's ways that you can do different things. Or do, if you don't have a laundry, at your house, you go to the laundromat and do it at the same time, doing things like that and help each other. But the key is to be together and continue talking and continue dating. Doesn't have to have dinner all the time, or just go walk, for a couple miles. Like in our area, we have those butte that you can go up there. We used to do that. Now as we get older, it's hard.
Now we walk flat ground.
I know, yeah. So there's many different ways that you can do and continue dating, and is the key of long-term dating the rest of you guys' marriage. Because if you don't put that effort now, by the time your children is grown up and all you have done is raise them, but the two of you doesn't have anything to get
no foundation underneath the family
nothing.
unit. Because the marriage is the foundation of the family.
Right.
So if it's just no foundation, and what's the Bible say about that? The foundations be destroyed. What can the righteous do?
Right.
And so what are children to do if mom and dad don't take care of the marriage? Hey, take care of the marriage. The kids will be okay.
Yeah.
And they don't need all those fancy karate classes and sports activities and all the stuff that eats up your time and money that could be invested in the marriage.
Right.
Well, I know we get this cultural pressures that in order to have well-rounded, well-adjusted children, we got to dump all kinds of money into all their different activities, and all the the entire life all of a sudden revolves around a child. Well, we don't do that in our family. Our home revolves around Jesus Christ first and foremost, and the marriage is more important than the kids. That doesn't mean our kids aren't important. Don't misunderstand us. We don't neglect our kids. We don't ignore our kids. We do all kinds of fun and wonderful things with our kids and take them places. Point is that the priority is Christ in the marriage, and the kids are the byproduct of that.
Well, it's one of the things that are hard for, especially for the wife, is like when you don't have the growing up teaching this way. It's like for me, in the beginning of our marriage, always children. After you have your children, you put them first. And as you grow together, you find that wow, I need to spend time with my husband. So there's balance, and finding that balance sometimes it could be difficult. You do your cleaning, your cooking, taking care of everybody, and then your kids, and the last thing you wanted to do, guess what, ladies? Spending time with your husband or your marriage to build that relationship together. And it's easy to fall into that type of living together. It's just like we're just living together, doing our own roommates and responsibilities.
Yeah, roommates sharing the expenses and the responsibilities together.
Yeah, and that is not what God designed for us to do. God wants us, to have that really close relationship. So it brings,
True, becoming one flesh.
Yes, and it becoming
and,
like
and
that.
staying one flesh.
Right, and yeah, it's important to find those balance and relationship, not to neglect one of the other. So that it's really what do you call this? Very important. And so how do you do that? And how to balance? I was like, your relationship with Christ, with God is important, relationship with your husband, and then at the same time relationship with your children and other people. Wow, that's a lot to think about, and sometimes you just like, wow, especially for men, they can just only focus on one thing and one thing only, and they're not very what do you call this, multitasking.
True.
Yeah, you call it's like, oh man, it's like I can't do that at the same time. So how, as a wife, how can you help that in that area? Well, put some reminder. Honey, this Friday is our date night. Don't forget. Remind that, because otherwise, if you just think, oh, they can't read our minds, right?
True.
Women, they think, oh, my husband needs to know that I need some, off with my children too. And it's hard, but they cannot think that way. They have to be reminded of, because they have a full-time job, they have many things, responsibility, earning, to take care of the family, but they can't really focus on multitasking. I mean, they just focus on one thing. And we as a helpmeet, I believe that we help them to be reminded of that. And then we as a woman, we get like, oh, my husband doesn't date me, he doesn't do this for me, he doesn't help me, all of that. Well, they can't read our minds. So praying for them, helping them, reminded them, instead of saying, hey, you're not dating me. It's kind of like.
And can I throw out a word of advice to the ladies? When you come to your husband with that, men carry the weight of responsibility. Our whole lives are men are built around all the responsibilities we have, the things that we have to do.
Right.
And a lot of times a husband comes home from work and he's still carrying the burden of, the boss chewing him out over him not doing something right or whatever. And he's not going to come home and complain to his wife about that. He's just going to quietly carry that burden in his heart, his mind. It's going to be on him. And he doesn't feel really needed at work. He feels used. He's there for his family. And he's bearing that burden for the welfare of you, the wife, and his children. And so there's two thoughts that just popped in my mind. One is, thank him for that. Thank him for carrying that load for you and the kids. Secondly, when you do come, and I guess the point I'm trying to make is this. If you come to your husband in such a way that there's another responsibility that he's failing at, that is dating you, you're just going to bury him with guilt. So a good thing that I've learned in my life, and I've taught her, is men like to feel needed. I don't know why that is. We're just that way. So don't try to figure out why. Just know it's true and then use it to the advantage of your marriage and the glory of God. So when Cynthia, it says, that I need to do something for her, like take her on a date or a weekend getaway, that can feel like a responsibility that I'm failing at. But if she says, hey, honey, I need you to help me. I need you. Mm-hmm. And then that gets my attention in a whole different way. And I said, well, what do you need? And then she can bring up, I need you to take me on a date.
Yeah.
Can we schedule a date? And it totally changes my perspective from something that's a responsibility to something that I'm needed for. In men love, I don't know why we're like this. God built us that way to feel needed. So anyhow, that was just a side note for ladies, because I understand maybe, I suppose men and women both fail at this, especially if you have, a situation where both are working outside the home and they struggle to keep the marriage first place. My biggest experience, though, is that ladies defer that to the kids. The man defers it to his work and responsibilities, and but sometimes if you have a woman who's working outside the home as well, and then she's juggling the kids and all that other stuff, then it's just too tired for a date. It's so important, guys, that you keep that going. I believe that would solve the majority of marital issues, is just to keep the dating up, schedule a couple weekend getaways, 2-night getaways, and even that doesn't have to cost money, not a lot of money. I mean, it could be, sometimes we've done camping trips. We just throw up a tent somewhere and spend a couple days camping. And that's an inexpensive getaway. I know not all girls are big on camping. Mine isn't either. So as we've gotten older, we've done cabins and yurts and state parks and that sort of thing. And that's a little bit less expensive than hotels. You can do your own meals, and just downtime is the point. Some downtime. So anyhow, I think today we've kind of talked that out quite a bit, and hopefully just gives you some practical realities of how to make this happen, how to make it work, the importance of prioritizing it in both your schedule and your budget. I would honestly, if I didn't have in my budget date nights and weekend getaways for my wife and I wouldn't spend any money on music lessons, sports classes, whatever for my kids. That'll come later, and it's important, but kids are okay. You know, it used to be you could give kids a stick and a tire, they'd play for hours.
Right.
Now we feel like we have to give them, society pressures us into thinking we have to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on all of their classes and sessions and so on. And we really don't. Kids don't need that. What they do need, hey,
Mom and Dad.
They need a mom and dad who are in love with each other and provide stability in the home. That's what they need.
And one of the things that, it sometimes there's hinders that. And so maybe you get discouraged. We can't afford that, once a week or every 3 months we go out,
You can quit having lunch out with guys at work and quit going to coffee with your girlfriends.
Right.
Go with your husband, go with your wife.
Yeah, you can save those, that way you're able to afford.
People spend money on that stuff.
So these things that sometimes the devil, use this financial hinders our, could have and would have a good relationship, and just by taking, simple date and, we, talk about these issues, sometimes women, oh man, just don't buy me flour, give me the money. That is not a good idea either. So if he wants to do that for you, hey, let him. I used to say that, and I just take the money, but whatever your spouse or your husband wants to do, let them do it. And we don't have much, money sometimes, what would they say, they said, but that could be a hindrance. So don't let that devil play with the thought we cannot afford it. It's better, it's better to have spend $100 now than divorce later.
Yeah, that's cheaper. It's cheaper to spend money on date nights and counselors.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than all the nightmare the kids go through because of divorce. Telling you, it's cheaper. Doesn't seem like it. So if you have personal questions about that, hey, shoot us a message. You can private message us right through Facebook Messenger. Anyhow, we're going to sign off for this week. Again, help us spread our ministry by liking, loving, wowing these videos, sharing them to your timeline, maybe tagging a few folks that you know are married who might benefit from these simple, practical talks about marriage and two equaling one in God's plan for marriage. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in today, and have a great week.